In Brazil, President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva met with Argentinian President Alberto Fernández amid international congratulations and gestures for his electoral victory. In the United States, more than 200 million citizens have cast their ballots ahead of the 2022 midterm elections scheduled for November the 8th. And in Nigeria, the army repelled an attack by the Daesh terrorist organization against a military base where nearly 1,700 detainees are held. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Now we begin with the news. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva received congratulations from leaders in social movements around the world, while current President Jair Bolsonaro has yet to make a public statement following Sunday's vote. Following Lula da Silva's victory with 50.9% of the votes, several leaders in Latin America and the world took to social media to express their congratulations to the president-elect for his victory in the runoff election. Among them is the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, who expressed his desire to continue strengthening the bond between the two peoples. Likewise, the Venezuelan president, Nicolás Maduro Moros, hailed the triumph of democracy in Brazil. Meanwhile, Presidents Vladimir Putin of Russia, Gustavo Petro of Colombia, and Andrés López Obrador of Mexico also expressed their happiness at the results of the election. We continue with more on Lula's presidential victory. The president of Venezuela said on Twitter that he had a good telephone conversation with President-elect of the Republic of Brazil, Lula da Silva. President Maduro welcomed Lula's willingness to resume the binational cooperation agenda between both countries. President Maduro and President-elect Lula agreed to work on that end. Colombian President Gustavo Petro also tweeted on Monday that he spoke by telephone with the president-elect Lula da Silva and extended his sincere congratulations. President Petro also said that Lula da Silva told him that relations between Colombia and Brazil will be close because they both love the Amazon. And the president-elect of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, received the Argentine President Alberto Fernández, who is visiting this country for the first time during his term.
I can only congratulate the people of Brazil because they have carried out an election day with total transparency, peace and calm. And I believe that this is valuable and it is something that all Latin America needs.
Now we move on to other topics. In Bolivia, mobilization continues in rejection of the indefinite strike promoted by the right, in addition to requesting the resignation of the governor of Santa Cruz, Fernando Camacho. During the mobilization, participants demanded the suspension of the extreme measure. In response, neighborhood organizations set up the so-called Cerco a Santa Cruz, the siege of Santa Cruz, which blocks the highways in and out of that city. Likewise, during the mobilization, participants denounced that followers of Santa Cruz Governor Fernando Camacho threatened women of the Ayorea ethnic group who opposed the indefinite strike. For its part, the government called to dialogue on the census in Cochabamba as a solution to the conflicts. The Colombian government announced that President Gustavo Petro will meet this Tuesday with his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolás Maduro in Caracas. A Colombian Foreign Ministry statement indicated that President Gustavo Petro will travel to the city of Caracas with his work team to meet with the Venezuelan president. Both heads of state will discuss issues regarding bilateral relations, the reopening of the borders, and the re-entry of Venezuela to the Inter-American human rights system. The official document stated that the meeting is part of the leadership of President Gustavo Petro to boost the region's economy and socialize his agenda in favor of the interests of the Latin American bloc and the protection of the Amazon, and as part of the preliminary meetings for COP27. In response to the Colombian government's announcement, the Vice President of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, confirmed Gustavo Petro's visit.
President Petro comes. It is a meeting that was announced. He had not set a date, as you say, but there was already a bilateral agenda, as you say. Ambassador Benedetti is here. We have Plasencia in Bogota. President Petro requested that Venezuela be the guarantor of the peace talks with the groups in Colombia and the government for total peace. Venezuela has always had a position in this sense, and the response of President Maduro was clear. Of course, we are willing to collaborate by every means necessary, because peace in Colombia means peace in Latin America.
We'll take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, more than 20 million U.S. voters cast their ballots, early ballots almost, in the midterm elections scheduled for November. Although the date of the midterm elections is set for November 8th, 46 states are involved early in the process. U.S. President Joe Biden exercised his right to vote last Saturday in the city of Wilmington, Delaware, a region where, according to the analysts, there is a strong support for the Democrats. It is estimated that midterm elections have a lower turnout than the presidential elections, and according to statistics from the last half century, only about 40% of voters go to the polls in these elections. The 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 36 governors and 35 senators out of a total of 100 are up for the election. Now we move on to other topics. On Monday, the United Nations Security Council met to discuss the suspension of grain exports through the Black Sea, 2 days after Russia accused Ukraine of violating the Istanbul agreements made in July 22nd. In the meeting, Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia recalled the allegations that Russia made 2 days ago, where Ukrainian forces did drone a strike against Russia's Black Sea fleet on the Russia-annexed Crimean Peninsula. Nebenzia mentioned that Russia did not want other acts of terror being prepared by Kiev with the support of its Western sponsors, and that this kind of act ends in the humanitarian dimension and suspends the implementation of this initiative of the 29th of October for an unspecified period.
The Russian side cannot guarantee the safety of civilian vessels participating in the Black Sea initiative. We do not want other acts of terror being prepared by Kiev with the support of its Western sponsors. Therefore, we are compelled to suspend the implementation of this initiative on the 29th of October for an unspecified period of time.
On the other hand, Martin Griffiths, the UN's top humanitarian coordinator, said it was important to stabilize the situation in order to fend off a greater crisis.
We hope and expect all member states to work to support the implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United Nations and the Russian Federation, also signed on the 22nd of July, to ensure their own food and fertilizer exports can expeditiously reach global markets. Because if we can't get more fertilizer out, we face even worse shortages next year.
On Monday, the leaders of Russia, Vladimir Putin, Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, and Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, reaffirmed their commitment to the agreements to normalize relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan signed in November 2020. According to the statement adopted after a trilateral meeting in Sochi, the leaders stressed the importance of actively preparing for the signing of a peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia to achieve a sustainable and long-term solution in the region, as well as the importance of forming a positive atmosphere between the two countries to continue the dialogue. The Russian president said the trilateral summit created conditions for further steps towards a general settlement of the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict.
The meeting was useful and it creates conditions for further steps towards a general settling of the situation. Russia, on its part, will do everything to reach a final and comprehensive settling. We will be in contact. We will continue this dialogue. We will continue to look for necessary solutions to put an end to this long-time conflict.
On Monday, Russia is ready to send to France one of the 6 large coils planned to implement the ITER, International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor Program on Nuclear Fusion, one of the major international scientific projects in which Moscow is still involved. The Russian coil, a magnet measuring 9 meters in diameter and weighing 200 tons, protected by its root and will travel to Europe. The ship, carrying it from St. Petersburg in northwest Russia, will reach Marseille in France via Amsterdam. This ring-shaped coil will form the upper part of the structure of the tokamak, an experimental machine under construction in the south of France that aims to master the production of energy from hydrogen fusion, as in the heart of the sun. In Europe, inflation in the Eurozone reached a new record high of almost 11% in October. According to the bloc's official statistics agency, the increase was driven by energy prices, which were 41.9% higher than in the same month last year. Likewise, the agency highlighted that prices of food, alcohol, and tobacco have also risen by 13.1%. Finally, they reported that the most affected country is Italy, registering the highest monthly increase with a rate of 12.8%. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Nigeria, the army repelled an attack by the Daesh terrorist organization on a military base located in the west of the country, where nearly 1,700 detainees are being held. Last weekend, dozens of terrorists tried to enter the Wawa military base in order to free hundreds of prisoners. Officials reported that the criminals attacked the place at midnight and that 8 of them were killed after they received air support. In addition, they said that 3 attackers, including their leader, were captured in an air prison. And police fired tear gas in an attempt to block demonstrators in Congo's eastern city of Goma, who were attempting to march to the Rwandan border. Journalists at the scene said as many as thousands of protesters took to the streets. Congo believed that Rwanda is supporting the M23 rebels, who expanded their control in the east of the country over the past year. In response, Congo's government ordered the Rwandan ambassador, Vincent Karega, to leave the country within 48 hours. Rwanda accused Congo of escalating tensions between the two countries and said its forces along the border remain on alert. Some protesters called for Russian support to counter the threat posed by the M23 rebel movement that has made territorial gains close to Goma in recent days. Discussions between Ethiopia's federal government and representatives of Tigray fighters, the TPLF, were allegedly extended, according to an official familiar with the arrangements for the talks. The African Union-led exchanges seek a cessation of hostilities, in addition to former Nigerian President Obasanjo, who represents the AU in the Horn of Africa, and former Kenyan leader Kenyatta. The mediation team also includes former South African Vice President Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. It is the first public dialogue between the warring sides since the conflict erupted in November 2020. No information has been released about the content of the talks, held inside the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in Pretoria. It makes it more difficult to assess progress. The Qatari government rejected Europe's implementation of fuel price caps and denounced the measure as a violation of the bloc zone competition rules. Qatar's Minister of Energy, Saad Al-Kaabi, during an interview, branded as hypocritical the idea of setting caps on gas prices, while assuring that the free market is always the best solution to the economic problems. This after assuring that the measure of establishing caps is contrary to the rules of competition established by the bloc towards producers in the past. Al-Kaabi also warned that if winters in Europe are hard, the energy crisis in the region could last until 2025. The minister explains that his country could redirect its gas volumes away from Europe when appropriate. On Monday, Haytham Al-Ghais, OPEC Secretary General, said OPEC's world oil outlook for 2022, between now and 2045, they see global investments requiring a total of $12.1 trillion and energy demand by a good 23%, that is around 2.7 million barrels per day of oil equivalent per year. He also said that this is a multi-decade investment challenge and we need all industry stakeholders to work together to ensure a long-term investment-friendly climate with insufficient finance available as well.
Alone, we see global investments requiring a total of 12.1 trillion, and I repeat, trillion with a T, between now and the year 2045. This is not only to add new capacity, but also to manage annual average industry decline rates of nearly 5%. And this equates to over $500 billion each year.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.